How each sign of the zodiac expresses their anger. By Lara Starr. July 13, 2016. Website: thespiritscience.net. Produced by Higher Self.
It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone gets angry from time to time. And when we're angry, we tend to leave patience, humility, and common sense behind, even if only for a moment. Maybe once we realize how we typically respond to things that anger us, we can work on delivering a better response. So, here are some of the typical things each zodiac sign usually has to work on when it comes to acting out in anger. Aries. Arians are definitely one of the quickest to anger. After all, they are one of the fire signs. They have a burning fire within them, and at times, you may see bouts of that fire bursting forth in anger. This is their dark side. They don't usually start arguments with people, but they certainly know how to end them. At times they can be impatient and volatile, especially when pushed past their limits, or when they are forced to deal with something before they believe they are ready. But as quick as they are to anger, they are usually just as quick to calm down, and even forgive those who angered them in the first place. They are one of the signs most capable of forgiving and forgetting. Taurus. Taurians are usually quite fair-tempered creatures. They tend to be very slow to anger. But when they do get angry, you had better watch out. Disloyalty, inequality, betrayal, those are the sort of things that really get on their nerves. Other than that, most Taurians don't want to waste their time and energy on getting angry. When they do get angry, it can take a long time for them to calm down again. It's best to give them space until that time. Unless, of course, Taurus is calm enough to try and talk things out. If they are, give them a chance to get their thoughts out in the open, otherwise you may anger them even more for refusing to listen. After the argument is over, they are usually very quick to forgive, unless of course you've done something extreme that they consider unforgivable. They will still be civil with you in most cases afterward, but you won't be able to bring the relationship back to what it once was. Gemini. As you probably already know, Geminis are known as the twins. You may as well flip a coin when it comes to how they're going to react when in anger. They may seem completely calm and centered when their words of anger cut you to the core. Geminis love to talk. That's usually what they do best. When in anger, that does not change. When you piss off a Gemini, get ready to be chewed out. Anger may start as rudeness or sarcasm, but it can quickly change to screaming, yelling, and throwing things. Luckily, they don't tend to stay angry for an extended period. As long as you don't tell a Gemini what to do or how to act, they may be able to forgive and forget. Cancer. Cancers are a very sweet, understanding, loyal, and loving sign. And that's really all they want in return. If they feel unloved, unappreciated, or offended by something, the first sign is usually sulking. If you're not getting the hints, it may evolve into passive-aggressive behavior. If you're still not getting the hints, they will more than likely go into hiding. Cancers in recluse mode may act as though they really do not want to talk to you, but that is usually just a ruse. In most cases, they actually do want to work things out, they just don't want to be the ones making all the effort. If you ignore them or blow them off, they will take it as even more evidence that you don't care, thus doing more damage to the relationship. Since they are so loving and loyal, they expect their loved ones to be as well. They will usually forgive you not long after, so long as the argument isn't over something major. Leo. When it comes to arguments with Leos, it's all about who can roar the loudest. Just about anything will set them off, and when it does, they will certainly let you know about it. They will kick, scream, rant, rave, throw things around the house and make quite the spectacle. They will probably say a bunch of hurtful things that they don't actually mean to, so don't take it personally. They're just trying to get their anger out in the best way they know how, by venting. After they've cooled off, they won't hold a grudge. In fact, they are probably most likely to come back in the room soon after, acting like nothing happened at all. They are quick to anger, but they are quick to move past it as well. Virgo. Virgos are one of the most patient and loving signs. They can take an unbelievable amount of abuse from people before they start showing signs of frustration and anger. They try to avoid doing so because they aren't very comfortable expressing their anger. But when they need to let it out, their emotions can get very intense. Their anger can be so strong, you may even feel it from the other room. Virgos are still quite passive-aggressive when angry too. They usually avoid confrontation and arguments at all cost. They find it much easier to walk away when they are angry, rather than sticking around to scream it out. Virgos are also very forgiving, and won't really hold a grudge. Then again, they don't tend to forget either. They are far less likely to trust someone after they realize their trust has been misplaced. Libra. Libra is the peacekeeper sign, so the scales are the perfect symbol for them. They always try to keep things equal and well balanced in their relationships, so anger and outbursts are avoided at all costs. That's why they tend to keep quiet and bottle everything up until they lose their cool. However, since they are one of the most sensitive signs, just about anything under the right circumstances can set them off. When angry words start flying around, that's when Libra usually makes a run for it. They may say a few choice words, but usually those words are shouted as they're running off. Even at the verge of their rage, they will hold back, think twice, and put up the sweetest poker face they can muster. If you hurt them enough times, they will certainly hold a grudge. They also tend to take note of all the things they hate about a certain situation, and then mentally file them away to use against you later on. Scorpio. Want to know if a Scorpio is angry? Watch their eyes. They tend to let you know with their eyes a lot sooner than they do with the rest of their body language. Like a few signs we previously mentioned, Scorpio is another one that tends to keep their anger on lockdown. For a time, anyway. They tend to get angry in their head first, then they plan their next actions accordingly. Sometimes their only action is to chew you out in their mind without saying a word. Other times, they are just quiet because they are planning their next argument in advance. This usually happens long before they are angry enough to explode. So, if you see the angry eyes and then they get really quiet, it's probably best to give them some space until they seek you out to talk things over. If you try to push them into sharing their thoughts too soon, you may regret it. Scorpios are also one of the signs that are more likely to hold long-term grudges. They may forgive, but they will never, ever, forget. Sagittarius. Dishonesty, disloyalty, cruelty, and hate speech of any kind is usually enough to anger a Sagittarius, and when a Sag gets angry they take no prisoners. When you piss one off, you know it, and you better walk away fast. Though, they do tend to have a lot of patience with most people, so you probably won't see them get angry very often. The first sign of irritation before anger arises is most likely to be overwhelming sarcasm. If a Sagittarius is getting angry, their conversation is probably just dripping with it. Most Sags try to keep their anger under wraps because losing their cool can make them feel quite embarrassed after they've calmed down. The most important thing to watch out for is that they don't create drama out of boredom. Sags like problem solving and working out issues, so they can occasionally create problems at home or work without consciously intending to. Capricorn. Capricorns are an earth sign, so they are pretty easygoing most of the time. However, they can have some rigid requirements for keeping the peace at home. Most likely because they simply want their space to be kept how they like it. You never know what will make a Capricorn angry. You may not even notice when they first get angry either. That's because Capricorns also tend to keep their emotions bottled up. Especially the negative ones. They'd much rather sulk and give you the cold shoulder over yelling. In the end, they may lose their cool for a second and make a big fuss, but they will get over it quickly. They will usually forgive you after they tell you how disappointed they are in you. Aquarius. Aquarians really can't stand to argue, especially when it comes to pointless arguments with stubborn people. They are the ones most likely to ignore you when they're angry. They'd much prefer to go for a walk or a drive rather than stick around and argue it out. If they can't avoid what's irritating them, they may feel cornered and explode out of sheer frustration. They will then abruptly avoid you at all costs until they have calmed down again. Or, they may just avoid you completely in the future. It all depends on who the argument is with. If it's a new relationship, they may not see worth in the effort of repairing it. Pisces. With a Piscean, it all depends on what kind of day you catch them on. If they're already having a bad day, they may explode if you set them off. If their day is going either way, then most Pisceans tend to avoid confrontation at all costs. They would much rather go have a smoke or a drink to help them calm down, rather than stick around for an argument. If that doesn't make them feel better, then usually a good cry will. They are probably the sign most likely to start crying out of frustration and anger, rather than flying into a rage and smashing things. When it comes to grudges, Pisceans will hold them in extreme situations, but for how long all depends on the circumstances.